Welcome to Dragonian, your podcast for news and updates in Hong Kong and Taiwan. I'm your host, William. Hi, welcome to part 2 of the 8th episode of the Dragonian podcast. This is your host, William. As we discussed yesterday, we have separated the collection of various topics from Hong Kong and Taiwan, so there will be one part of the episode dedicated for Hong Kong and the other part dedicated for Taiwan. And today's part is dedicated for Taiwan. You can also listen to part 1 of the episode from your favorite podcast app. And if you are interested in news about Hong Kong and Taiwan, don't forget to subscribe to the Dragonian podcast. And now, let's get back to what we are discussing this week. So the first topic is about eggs. Quote, again. Yes, so eggs have yet become the spotlight for this week again. As we have discussed in 2 episodes ago, eggs was considered as an election hit topic, but now someone from the opposition are saying that there are corruption scandals and people are just providing toxic eggs to the general public. Parties in the opposition have mobilized their own supporters to denounce the government's tactics in tackling the egg shortage problem in early March by importing eggs from other countries. Furthermore, the government's decision to let companies with few previous experience to import eggs have also been a main reason for the attacks and the main content of the attacks from the opposition. And that was like 2 weeks ago, but now they're talking about eggs being toxic. So there are a few reasons for why the eggs are denounced as toxic. The first reason is about the eggs are being stricken with diseases. In Taiwan, they declared dairy products, meat products, and particularly chicken products from Brazil as disease-stricken areas, as the country, Brazil was hit with swine flu. However, the eggs were all the eggs that were packed and shipped over from Brazil to Taiwan, all were packed before Taiwan's announcement as Brazil as a disease-stricken area, as an area that was stricken with influenza. So there was one part of this attack. The second part of the attack were stating that the eggs were rotten when they were sold, while technically none of them were. Although the labels were incorrect on their date, best before date. The best before date was incorrect, but the whole thing was still is a validity period, which means that they were still safe to be consumed. And the third one was rather interesting, as the opposition accused those eggs imported from Brazil were coated with poisonous wax to extend its shelf life. However, the fact was the norm for extending shelf life with eggs, if you're not consuming immediately, they were normally coated with a layer of dedicated wax. And these attacks and the hostility against the Ministry of Agriculture have forced the minister to resign as to bear and assume political responsibility for all the incidents about eggs recently. So it showed, now it's my own comment, now it's William's own comment. So first, it showed the low trust between the opposition and the governing party and other people. This includes low trust between media between different media from Taiwan, for example, from Sunli News and from LTN, and for example, from the Chinese News Network, and etc. It also showed low trust between people and politicians and the tendency for the media to omit some of the information when broadcasting or having news. And this low trust also happened to coincidentally appear between party lines. So, for example, if you're supportive of the Chinese Kuomintang, you probably won't listen or will consider news from the Liberty Times media as fake news, while in the opposite, if you're supporting the Penguins, you'll consider news from the China Times as something that was like fake news, completely of fake news. So this rhetoric of media will affect how people consume news, and from what we have seen, the egg incident is basically just another example of this whole divided media thing. So that's the first part of that's the first topic about eggs, and now as a second topic is about Hsinchu City. So last week, Hsinchu City was like flooded with headlines about its mayor and about every single thing. So first, the mayor got her rights suspended from Taiwan People's Party, her own party, due to corruption charges being placed against her on the 19th of September. So it showed how the TPP was trying to do damage control on Mayor Cao. However, this was not the end of the whole story. So first of all, back to the story first. So Ann Cao was charged on corruption charges where she was like working as a member in the Taiwanese parliament on misusing funds allocated normally for her assistants as like for other uses. So normally you'll have assistants as a parliament member, and if they overwork, then they're eligible for extra pay. However, in this case, in Ann Cao's case, there wasn't that overwork, but she wrote that there was overwork and like they claimed funds from the legislative yuan. However, after the funds were claimed, the funds were not sent to the staff themselves, but were allocated as a central fund for Ann Cao's parliament office. So that was one part of this whole damn story. The second half was even worse. So after she assumed her duty as the mayor of Hsinchu City, so she accelerated some urban redevelopment works. However, the problem is not only about the urban redevelopment works, but about her enjoying benefits from the construction company behind those urban redevelopment works while accelerating the whole urban redevelopment process. So as Hsinchu City is like growing fast, so there was like high demand for urban redevelopment, so it was like highly sought after. While this only showed how in Taiwan this whole thing became more and more interesting. So it was considered an internal leak first, and Mayor Ann's like pledge to find the person who was leaking the information. However, the commentator said that there was like he would like review who gave the information first, but after the information was reviewed, the whole thing only came from public sources. So it showed that there were like low trust between mayor and her own government workers, while at the same time showing that sometimes the opposition may also do something bad. I mean, no one is like a god, so possibly they do something wrong. But in Mayor Ann's case, it shows like she got to her party, she got her mayor's she got her position as mayor elected because she's stating that there were like different corruption scandals and stuff like that. But now the whole thing just came as like she was literally involved in it. So I have no idea why, but it shows how bad the whole situation is. I mean, and people were just laughing or considering the city as a laughingstock for the rest of the week or for whatever week ahead we're having. So this was also related to the election in Taiwan, and considering the whole thing in Taiwan, this was probably something that was normal. I'm not saying that corruption is normal. The best thing for cities, the best thing for countries is to have a very should not have a corrupt government, to have people who are working for the people, not for a particular subset of people. The problem in Taiwan, both from its media to its education system to its politics, are all showing that polarization and facts and other things like that were just being used as a basis of attack. I mean, if you're attacking other people using like their real events, then I think it's fine. But in the case in Taiwan, it shows that they're not using this, like they're not using fact as the basis of accusation, but sometimes they're using imaginary things. And in worst case, when they are like telling them I'm anti-corruption, they just became the corrupted person that whom they disguise when they're electing to the post. The last topic is about a weird military update on like Chinese military exercise near Taiwan. So, a Yunjiu, a Y9 reconnaissance aircraft, flew directly under a civilian aircraft during a training exercise in Saturday and in Sunday. So first, this exercise, for the background of this reconnaissance aircraft first. So this is a reconnaissance aircraft that was developed and operated by the PR China's Liberation Army. Although this is not the first time an aircraft has like been spotted operating near the middle line of the Taiwan Strait, this is the first time where an aircraft operates where the military aircraft operates directly under or over the normal civilian aircraft while using a civilian air corridor that was designated by China. The worst, this thing, after this was revealed, some sources stated that the Y9 aircraft turned off its transponder so as to conceal its like flight data. After it was like spotted and reported by Taiwanese organizations. So it's a bit worrying trend. However, that's not the worst thing that I want to, that's not the thing that I want to say. It's more about my commentary or my comment on this whole thing. So first, this thing happened after the recent purge within the PLA, the People's Liberation Army's like rockets and the Air Force generals. What in turn came are like people who are not having a lot of interactions with the Western media, Western militaries, which means that they may have like a more traditional Soviet mindset. And the idea of using a reconnaissance aircraft operating under a civilian aircraft were signs of unrestricted warfare, or in this case, is unrestricted cognitive warfare that exerts undue pressure on the defense, or in this case, Taiwan's military. At the same time, I think it is also quite alarming as Chinese military are directly using civilian aircraft as in some cases they're calling civilian aircraft as like decoys, while in this case they're using civilian air corridors, which is worse as they can literally make things complicated and make people like hard, or make the Taiwan's military hard to identify, or harder to identify threats, and basically warming up the tension or heating up the tension within Taiwan. So we hope you find this part of the episode and this episode informative. If you do, please subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss a single episode. At the same time, if you have any feedback, please let us know in the comments or drop us an email at william@dragonianpod.com. So thanks again for listening. We will be back next week with more news from Hong Kong and Taiwan. Have a safe and happy week ahead.